Welcome to this recap for Miss Universe Canada 2025. Thank you for joining me. I hope you choose to subscribe and share the channel with a friend. Also, I believe this is the first time that I'm recapping Miss Universe Canada. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been a while, I feel like, since I've talked about a Canadian representative, and I got quite a few requests for this episode, so I looked into it and I have a lot of thoughts about this show. Prior to the show's official start, we got to see Backstage hosts interviewing some of the contestants. Now, I feel like this is my hot take on Backstage hosting. I think if you're going to have it during a show, then it should be very quick and very fast-paced. I also feel like the people being interviewed should be very intentional. So that's either the contestants that you know have a ton of fans watching at home, potentially somebody who has won a fan vote. We're talking about sponsors, judges, people behind the scenes that have great insights, but basically people that your audience is going to be interested in hearing from. I wouldn't put somebody on camera that my audience wasn't already familiar with, because I don't feel like it adds to the excitement, the anticipation, or the entertainment value of the show. The other thing about this is that it was so poorly lit. Everyone was dark. I don't know if this was the camera or actually the lighting, but it was very, very dark, and that was very unfortunate because they also talked about their sponsor, Portia and Scarlett, and the dresses did not get any justice. They were in the dark. It was very sad. Then let's talk about the opening number itself. Personally, I feel like this opening number was too complex. There were so many different counts. There were ripples, which are very risky for non-dancers who don't know how to count. The routine was not clean. The contestants looked confused. They were bumping into each other at times. And I think that the dresses were far too short for that choreography. You could see contestants pulling those dresses down. So you have to keep in mind, what is the wardrobe that they'll be wearing for that opening number when choreographing that? There was also a really distracting drone flying across the stage, getting different shots of the contestants. I don't feel like that enhanced the camera work at all, and it's frankly, I believe, the reason why most productions use cranes instead of drones during a live show. Now, when the contestants were announced for the first group of semi-finalists, we saw these clips of them, and I felt like these clips, you shouldn't have even done it. We didn't even need it during the show because the clips did not do any of these women justice. Every time that I saw the woman walk forward, I thought, oh my gosh, she's so much more beautiful than what we're seeing in this clip. I don't know the behind the scenes of this or how this happened, but when I was looking at the ladies, all I could think about was that, the hair and the makeup was really messy. The skin was very oily. They tried to backlight them, but then some of the ladies would step away and then the light behind them would shine directly into the camera and you couldn't get a great shot of the contestant. I just didn't feel like this put the ladies in a good light. And if that's the case and you get a product like that, I would just say cut it from the show. If it's not adding, then it's taking away. Now I'll share with you some of my favorites for swim, my standouts. Selena was very smart. They did not call her name, so she held her spot and she waited until it was actually her turn and she knew everyone was ready. I thought that was brilliant. It was not her fault at all. And ladies, if you're in that situation, you should do what she did. So let me say this about her. I think that she did fantastic for this. I thought that she had a really great walk, but I do have a note for my contestants who have a larger cup size. So if you have a larger cup size, especially during swim, it's gonna be tough to minimize that cup size so then it's not the first thing that the judges are focusing on. If you are able to choose your swimsuit, I would recommend a swimsuit style that is a demi cup with some sort of underwire. That's a great minimizer. Really anything with an underwire or a little bit more coverage is gonna help you. The other thing too is just to be hyper aware of the bounce on stage. I feel like at times that can be distracting as well. And I know that that is really, really tough to control. Sometimes it's out of our control, but I have noticed if you engage your chest muscles underneath that breast muscle, that we can actually prevent a lot of that bouncing. And if we smooth out our walks as well, and we ensure that we're not changing our level as we walk, we can reduce that too. That's just an extra tip for all the ladies out there. But that aside, I think she stood out for swim. Jabali, I was so excited for. She's a former Miss New Jersey USA. I've gotten to hang out with her a little bit. She was actually my last New York Fashion Week vlog. We both walked in New York Fashion Week together. She is kind and intelligent, and so of course I was really rooting for her here. I thought that she brought what she needed to bring to advance to that next level. I think that moving forward, there's still room to grow for her walk, but I think this was deserving of her moving on. Carmen is a contestant that I immediately just thought, I like her. She's got a little something extra about her. I do think that she needs to cross over more in her swim walk. I think overall the walk needs work, but she's one of those contestants that you look at her and you're like, wow, like there's something special about you. There's something special about you. I need to see you again. Olga, I thought she had a really relaxed opening. I would, however, have liked to have seen a different swimsuit on her if they get a choice. I think that her posing was really safe. I think that it was a good strategy. She also didn't rush. I would just encourage her to work on spotting a little bit more with her turns. I think that there are ways to improve her routines with use of spotting. Malaika, gorgeous, great walk, confidence, nice posing. During this point of the show, I thought she's my top swim score. Sarah, I thought that this was nice. I was like, okay, I'm feeling this. The one thing I would say though for her walk is to not drop so hard into her steps. I thought that her smile was great and her transitions were great as well, but the dropping onto the floor is something that makes a walk look, the way I would just describe it, as heavy versus gliding and really smooth. I can show you what I mean. I loved Nora. I think that she has potential. I think that there's further that she has to go. I don't know if she got her hair and makeup done or did it herself. I think she needs different hair and makeup. I just felt like it was not doing her justice. Jamie, the thing about her swim performance is that she took her time. I did notice that some of the other contestants that I think could have scored better didn't take as much time as they should have to really connect with the judges. So I can totally see why they were loving her here. I do think that there could be a little bit more posture in the shoulders, just opening up the chest a bit more, but she is really beautiful. And I have to say, when I saw the contestant headshots, I was like, who is that? She was the only contestant whose headshot I clicked on. Our next contestant, I'm going to try to pronounce her name correctly. I hope I get a little bit close. Kamuahao. I think that she had so much confidence when she entered the stage. It was fabulous. I would prefer her to keep her head up just a little bit, but I think that she had a great smile, great eye contact, and nice posing. Sarah had great eye contact. That was evident to me. I would just encourage her to not flick her head up during swim. I think that she was really well posed, but I would also encourage her to stop playing so much with the wrap. It's very distracting. And ladies, I would also really encourage you that whenever you do have this should never attract more attention than you. So we don't need to ever do this on stage. I would say that would be one of my pageant pet peeves when I see a contestant do this. Maybe once, but several times? Solange, really, really nice smile. I thought that she did such a great job on all of her posing. I would just change up the facial expressions a little bit. Now we cut down to our top 15. And you know what? I always talk about entertainers. I'm glad we saw a little bit of entertainment here in the middle. They brought in some tap dancers. I just would have mic'd the stage so we could actually hear the taps. The other great thing is they had a live piano player for gown. I thought that was wonderful. Now I'll talk to you about my standout performances. Selena, great gown for her. The fit of this was incredible. She was so elegant, and also she did not overwork that overskirt. Thank you. It was not distracting or taking away from her. She didn't make the focus that overskirt. She just like moved it just a little bit. It was nice, so nice. Jabali, really nice opening shot. Oh my gosh, the reveal of her back in that gown. Also, did you notice she seemed to have the same strategy as Shanice, where she had the opera coat, so red. She was in silver, but kind of like the white in the Canadian flag, and then red again. She was essentially the Canadian flag on stage. Not sure if you caught that, but she was lovely, wonderful performance, and I fully expected this from her. Carmen, I do have to say, I think this was a great gown on her. I thought she was so beautiful. I think that she needed practice for the stairs, and this is what I was talking about. You can still see that she's a bit green when it comes to her stage performances, but I do think that she really stands out. Once again, crossover a little bit more. I feel like that's really going to improve the walk. And then I didn't feel like the poses were the best for that gown. Like she wasn't capturing her best angles in the gown with the camera, but she still is a standout. Malika, to me, she just needs to represent Canada somewhere. I loved her. I was such a fan, loved her confidence. I think she carried this gown with a lot of elegance. I think that the color wasn't best suited for her though. I feel like she needed something a bit brighter. Like this style in white, I feel like would have translated a lot better on stage. It just would have made her brighter. But I also think that like with her long frame, she could do a different silhouette. She would really be able to carry a fully embellished gown, even with like a high neck, just like something covered in crystals. Nora, honestly, I like this walk. I like this performance. I do think that the gown was a bit too short, or should I say that the heels were too high. The heels, I just don't think were doing anything to help her, but still, I wanted to see different makeup on her. She is so beautiful. Jamie, wow. Interesting. I like how this gown translated on film more than I liked how it translated in photos. So it's like, okay, this makes sense why she wore this gown. I thought this was beautiful. I'd like a different hairstyle on her. I would not like to see her move forward with this hair for Miss Universe. I don't feel like it's going to be very effective, but she looked really, really beautiful here. She really stood out for evening gown. Kamahau, wow. This gown, oh my goodness. Now, I do feel like it inhibited her walk a little bit. That's gonna happen with these heavily beaded styles. It didn't allow her to glide quite as much, but she was such a standout. She was so beautiful here. When I saw the top 5, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. I really love that for this competition, they all give them a minute to just say whatever they wanna say before they get their onstage question. I like it. So if there's anything you wanna make sure that the judges know about you, speak your piece. Let's talk about their statements. Jabali shared that she is born to 2 immigrant parents. She talked about how English is her second language. She also talked about this influential book when she was little, because the illustrations are really how she was able to connect with a lot of books as she's learning English. And so she read this book, and it was a cartoon about Amelia Earhart, the first female pilot to fly across the Atlantic solo. So she talked about how she is also a private pilot and aviation journalist working at NASA. She shares stories to help young girls find their wings. Loved that. Honestly, she speaks so well. She knows her brand. I thought this was inspirational. I love how she delivered this speech, and I was just like, what did the winner deliver for Jabali not to win? When I heard this, I was like, this is a strong opening. What am I in store for? Carmen talked about Canadians specifically facing difficulties with mental health challenges. She also talked about that she's a physician, so I'm going to bet that she had a great interview as well. She believes in healing the mind as well as the body, and I will say at the end she got thrown off a little bit, like not too badly, but she got on track. And then she had a great quote: if you speak up, you may give someone the courage to live another day. So she's talking about sharing your story and giving other people essentially like a will to live and a will to go on. So it was very beautifully said. Malika talked about how she has literally lived all around the world. She's seen how women are treated as well as children as second-class citizens. She talked in and referenced child marriages, and she wants to be a voice for the voiceless. That phrase, ladies, if you can, I would stop using that. I feel like it is overused. And she got a little bit shaken up at the end though, unfortunately. I feel like she could have had a stronger ending. And the other thing is, when it comes to body language, she was leaning down. Ladies, stand up straight, stand up tall, project your voice when you're delivering a speech, and really connect to your lower tones. We continued with Jamie, and she stood up straight and tall, and she spoke slowly and confidently as she delivered her speech. Ladies, honestly, that's how you do it. We really got to observe this positive body language here. It was fantastic. Now, I'm very confused about her speech, and I'm going to need some people to fill in the blanks, because she talked about staring down the barrel of a revolver, thinking about her last thoughts, and then a man pulling the trigger. Then she transitioned to discussing gender-based violence, and I was like, wait, are we talking about something that happened to you? So that did confuse me, because I felt like there was no context and we needed a bit more of it. But then she wrapped everything up talking about how she's a transformational leader and that we are the generation of change. So she wrapped everything up right with that Miss Universe catchphrase on a positive note. So it made sense. She spoke really, really well. And so I was like, okay, I can see this. Kamaha talked about how she is Nigerian Canadian. She is the child of an immigrant, and she wants to be the voice of those who are looking for a job. She talked about how a lot of people are facing difficulty finding jobs in Canada, honestly, around the world. And she wants to be an example that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you deserve also to be a Miss Universe Canada. Now, I think the issue here would have been her delivery. So I've talked about this a bit in other episodes, but ladies, please, for these speech competitions, you do not have to raise your voice. You do not have to shout into the camera as you're delivering these speeches. It's not going to make your speech more powerful. And I feel like it has actually the opposite effect. And whenever I see a contestant shout, it results in a lower placement. Now they got their onstage questions, let's talk about it. Jobali's question was, if you were the CEO of a company, what policy change would you implement to make the work environment more safe and fair? This is a tough one, honestly. She did talk about how less than 1% of the country is making as much as CEOs. She talked about the general citizen is the backbone of the economy. She also talked about women being less than 20% of the aviation industry. So as a CEO, she would like to stand for everyone. Essentially, she was talking about fair wages. Carmen, what is the most important issue facing your generation, and how would you address it as Miss Universe Canada? She said, we are at the cusp of technological advancement. Our youth is connected through social media at the greatest extent. We have the highest rate of pressure, anxiety, and depression. I want to push for the gift of forgiveness, to forgive ourselves for not reaching perfection. If we strive for perfection, we will never be ourselves. I do feel like talking about pressure, anxiety, and depression related to her earlier statement about anxiety and depression rates. And I don't feel like that she necessarily addressed the part of how would you address this as Miss Universe Canada simply by encouraging forgiveness. I felt like the answer was a little bit deflated at that point, especially as somebody that is working in the medical field. I feel like she could have offered, as a suggestion, different resources that are available to people who are facing anxiety or depression or suicidal ideations. Like, I was like, you gotta have some resources, right? Like, I know in the US, for example, we have organizations like NAMI that are able to help and assist you find those mental health services that you need for no cost or for free. We have the 988 emergency hotline for these types of situations, for these sorts of emergencies. And I was like, wow, as a physician, I was expecting a bit more from this answer. Malika was asked, what personal experience has shaped your understanding of leadership the most? So she talked about living in an Indian boarding school and being the only Black woman there. She said it's important to not conform to social norms. No matter what judgments face you, use it as fuel to achieve, but she never talked about leadership. So to me, she didn't answer this question. Now we have our winner, Jamie. They asked, how would you carry yourself when the cameras are off and the crown is still on? This question on the surface, I don't think it sounds bad, but in my opinion, when a question is phrased like this, where the contestant has basically two choices, to speak positively about herself or speak negatively about herself, you're typically gonna see her choose the positive answer. And so I don't love these types of questions because I feel like it doesn't leave that much room for anything unexpected or a truly creative answer. Here's what she talked about though. She says that she'd carry herself the same, that no matter if the spotlight is on or off, that you should lead with purpose and that you can, or that you should lead with purpose and that we can create a world where everyone belongs. As you can see, a very safe answer here. What contestant in their right mind would get on stage and say something like, well, when the crown is off, I'm a kleptomaniac? Nobody's gonna say that and put themselves in a bad light. So I just don't like the phrasing of this question. Kamaha was asked, how can Canada promote unity and understanding among its diverse communities in light of recent social and political challenges, and what do you believe individuals or you can play in fostering inclusivity? I am not a fan of these types of questions. When you're up there and the pressure is on, I feel like these two-part questions are super complex and they're very, very difficult to answer. I was incredibly impressed by her answer because she actually answered the two questions. So the two questions were, essentially they boiled down to how can Canada promote unity and how can she foster inclusivity? She said, Canada, she's smart and she tackled the first question directly. She said Canada can promote unity through things like Miss Universe Canada. She said, I stand here as the first Nigerian Canadian and I stand with others of different backgrounds. Then she talked about her advocacy for immigrants. i.e. the way that she is promoting inclusivity. She said that she can share the message that we are all one and all the same. That's how I'll provide unity through the Miss Universe Canada platform. Very well done. Under pressure, when there's nerves, it is very difficult to answer a question like this. But yet, let's talk about the results. 4th runner-up, Kamohao. I thought that could have gone a different way. Judges saw it differently. 3rd runner-up, this surprised me though, Malaika. It surprised me because I don't feel like she answered the question, and then she did stumble through the end of her initial speech. So to me, if we were ranking just based off of that, I do think I would have ranked her below Kamohao. But if we're talking about overall impressions, I understand how a judge might swap that ranking if they already liked her. Jobali, 2nd runner-up. Honestly, congrats. This was a really difficult year at Miss Universe Canada. From what I saw, yes, the production can improve, but the quality of women actually were really great. Overall, I think that hair and makeup and all of those things can be better, sure. But the women themselves at their core, so impressive. Now that brings us to our top 2. Our 1st runner-up was Carmen. That surprised me as well, just based off of the delivery of her answers and her evening gown performance. And then our winner is Jamie. I think Jamie was really consistent. I think she had a really wonderful delivery, especially of her speech. She looked beautiful. She has a great headshot. I feel like she's just a very well-rounded competitor, and usually consistency gets you a crown. Those are my thoughts for this year's competition. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and let's be sure to keep them positive and kind. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you very soon.